Hello and welcome back to my channel, Bookish Lady Night, where we get a look behind the book. Today is the newest episode in my narrator series, and I am so excited to be joined by audiobook narrator Tyler Griffin. I actually discovered him on Astoria Royal series by Deborah Garland in Savage King, which he is also featured on Holiday Scars, also by Deborah. So if you haven't checked either of those out, definitely do. Work has clearly resonated with listeners and even earned him a nomination for the Sultry Listeners Award, which that is very cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
He has a way of pulling in listeners, captivating them into the story, and giving characters depth and emotions that we really end up staying with us and live rent-free in our brain long after we're finished with the audiobook. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'm very excited. So you have maybe a couple of projects. Are you able to share what you are working on right now? Because I know you're probably very busy.
I'm working on a few projects right now, and I don't think I've been announced yet. So I'm not going to talk about those other
Okay.
than I will be playing a mafia, another mafia boss.
Okay.
I will also be playing a Lycan king. Um, and gosh, what else? I have a few. I have a few things. I have a contemporary romance that's coming up, and another shifter book. So yeah, it's an interesting time in the booth. I'm going to be playing a lot of different characters.
That's exciting. I like the sound of all of those. Those are all usually on my TBR, so I'll be checking those out. So what originally got you into narration?
So I actually do have a stage acting background, and I left the acting world for quite a while. Went into the corporate world, some finance, management, accounting, which was great, but the the creative bug is always there.
Mhm.
And one of the things with my 45-minute commute each way, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. And I've always been a reader. I've always loved the medium. And this was a chance for me to get back to acting, get back to flexing those creative muscles. And I haven't turned back since I started. It's been so great.
That's really cool. So what does a typical day in the booth look like for you?
So, you know, very first thing, I'm always going to start with my vocal warm ups, which is about a 20-minute routine that I have that kind of really gets me set. Everyone's got that kind of thing that they do to set their mind and get them where they need to go. And then I like to jump right in. I want to start recording. I want to get as many words in the mic as I possibly can, get those breaks every hour or so or as needed, get a lunch. The second half of the day, depending if I'm editing the project myself, I may be doing that or, maybe prepping the next manuscript that I've got. I've got a couple of things that I'm trying to read right now in the middle of recording, just so I'm ready. When that next project starts, I don't want to start behind. So that's how I, give my vocal cords a rest in the second half of the day by doing some of that work that I don't need to talk for.
Okay. So being a lover of books and an avid reader, do you fully read the books before you start narrating them, or do you kind of just do like a Cliff Notes skim through them before you start?
I fully read every book before before I go into the booth. I don't like to be surprised. There are some narrators I know want to go on that journey with the reader and be surprised and have them hear that as they narrate. And there's definitely a place for that, and I think people have been very successful doing that. I'm not one of them. I need to know. I think it might be a control thing maybe, that I need to know what's gonna happen. For me also, I think probably the worst thing that could happen to me is I get three-quarters of the way through the book and, an accent is mentioned, and I have to go, "Oh my gosh." I have to go back and re-record all those lines because I didn't know there was an accent, or there are times that there's a big twist at the end of a book, and I want my performance to hint at that twist if it's appropriate, but it will inform a lot of the acting choices that I make in the early part of the book. So when a reader goes back or a listener goes back and listens again, they see all those little hints, all that, oh, the way he said that, that really foreshadowed. I didn't know it at the time, but going back, you can be like, oh no, this was a full performance that was really thought out. Because I put a lot of work into prepping these scripts and making sure that you as a listener are getting the full experience of that book. And really, those words are there for a reason. Authors are very, very careful about their word choice and very, very intentional about their word choice. And I want to respect that as an actor and make sure that we're giving the performance to the listener that the author wanted you to have.
That's really true. I loved, especially in Savage King, because that one, if you are not familiar with that series, it's a darker mafia romance series, and you actually are featured in other books along with the two characters that are narrating, because it's, like a fully casted audiobook. So even in those performances, like, you can tell it's you as that character, and you keep it going throughout all the different books that I've heard you in within that series, and the emotion and the delivery that you give to say the lines, that's evident. Now, hearing you say that, you definitely can tell on the other side.
It was really a privilege when Deborah would email me and say, "Hey, we've got another book. Will you please come back and play Kieran again?" It's such a great character. Just the that mafia boss who just falls head over heels
Yeah.
and is able to get, without too many spoilers, get what he wants.
Yeah.
Not just from a business side, but also from a love side. We all read romance for the same reason. We want that HEA,
Yeah.
but being able to then help with those other books and those other characters and kind of bring that thread back that no, this is all family. And I really love the choice that Deborah made to bring all the cast members back. So you have that continuous thread throughout. When you hear Kieran's voice again, it just brings you back. Like, oh yeah, I remember, like, or you hear, any of the characters. Every time
Mhm.
you hear them, you're just like, "Oh, yeah, that book, and he's still here, and it's still the same guy." It's just something that, we all love those Easter eggs in, the 3rd movie in a series
Yeah.
when that one character comes back for a scene and you just get that feel. I
Mhm.
love that Deborah did that with the books too. It's such a great series.
Yeah, and then also because, each of the guys that are featured, and even the girls, they all have, like, a lot of, like, traumatic backstories. So seeing them, you can kind of hear, even in the tone, how you deliver it, as they had their happily ever after, they sound a little happier. They're in a different mindset. And also, it reminds me of those old, like, back in the day where they had the radio theater.
Mhm, mhm.
Instantly got that vibe when she came out with these that way, because I read them as, like, the books originally as arcs, and then she came back through and asked anyone who does audiobook if they'd be willing to listen to them, and I ran so fast and signed up. So, I was very excited for that. But I agree with you. It definitely is nice to have the same imagery and be kind of thrown back into that story just by hearing your voice delivering that character again.
It's the same narrating it when I get to come back and, I pull up that voice file to say, "Okay, how exactly did I sound?" 'Cause I wanna match it. And
Mhm.
it's so easy. You just slip right back in. There's Kieran. What's he doing now? Like, it's just so easy and it's so comforting to slide back into that character, even if it's for, only a couple of chapters. It's enough.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. So, when you're not recording, what is your downtime usually look like? Are you reading? Are you, doing a different hobby? What does that kind of look like for you?
So I do try to read as much as I can. Don't I wish I could listen to more audiobooks, honestly, and I don't get to because I'm generally reading for, the next job, or if I'm not reading, I do enjoy axe throwing. That is one
Mm,
of my fun hobbies that also gets a lot of stress out. And so
yes.
that is a good hobby of mine. And also, I love entertainment in general. So I am a big TV watcher as well. If I'm just too tired to read, and it's, late at night, I'm gonna throw on an episode of The Pit, or just go back and watch some classic show that, I just kind of miss and want that nostalgia.
That's cool. I go to the Renaissance Fair, so I've done axe throwing there, and it's a lot of fun. I'm not very good at it, but I try it every time to see if I improve, but that is really cool.
It's a fun hobby to have. I now own
Hmm.
a couple of axes, and who knew that I was going to be able to say that one day?
You can add that to your like little resume of the things I'm good at.
Yeah,
I like that. I did an interview with Stephanie Rose, and she was talking about I was telling her like she does really good at like dropping her voice to do like the male counter response, and I was like, I can definitely not do that. It's really hard for me to do that. I sound really dumb when I try to sound like a guy. And so she was talking about that, and she's like, you just need to practice. And I'm like, yeah, and then one day I can put it on my resume and that'll be like something that I can say I accomplished. So
Stephanie
that's cool.
Rose is one of my favorite people.
She is.
We've done 2 conferences together and just had a blast hanging out together.
Mhm.
Maybe, maybe you'll wanna keep your eye towards the end of the summer
Okay.
on projects that the both of us are doing.
All right, I'll do that. I'll do that. I follow you both, so I'll definitely do that.
I love watching her lives.
Do you ever find it hard to like turn off your narrator mode?
Yes, yes, there are some characters that stay with you even after you walk out of the booth. It is easier when I'm doing a paranormal or a shifter where clearly I'm not a dragon when I walk out of the booths. Those are easy, but there are some characters. I've been doing a lot of Omegaverse lately. So you have a
Mhm.
lot of different characters, and there are some that you connect with more than others. And sometimes um, you just have that kind of mentality that when you walk out of the booth, it stays with you for a little
Mhm.
while, and you have to kind of, oh, nope, we need to transition back to being Tyler, and not, whichever character I was playing at the time. So yeah, yeah, I do sometimes find it difficult, but I guess that's part of the job. And you get through it. You try not to interact with too many people for the first maybe like 20 minutes outside of the booth.
You're like, I need to come off of that intense battle. I need a minute.
Exactly.
So when you were talking about, staying in the character, that you create like a clip of the character, how is that when you're narrating a book like an Omega verse where there's multiple points of view and you have to make them each unique? Do you struggle with creating that certain pitch for each character?
Honestly, not usually. So I just finished a book called Forget by Jen Bullard, and it is the third in a series. It is a Why Choose Omegaverse, Mafia, just all the things. And each book has 4 MCs. And so we did the first book, which was Not My Sin. And I was able to tell and again, this is one of the reasons I read the book, you get a full view of that character, not just from the interactions of he's a mafia enforcer, and this is a torture scene. It's a fairly dark book. This is a torture scene, so you're going to have that aggressive, you know, um, typical mafia enforcer type. But you also get the okay, but this is what he's like when he's with his mates, and this is what he's like when he's joking around with his friends, and you get a full picture of what this character is if it was a real person.
Mhm.
And I use that usually about a third of the way through the book. I'm going to hear that voice in my head. And then it's just a matter of getting it to come out of my mouth in the way that I hear it. So, especially when you have I work with some amazing, amazing authors. Deborah, again, you, I heard that voice for Kieran very quickly. Blade and Jet's the same. You get those interactions and you hear those voices because of what the words are and how they're written. I think my biggest my biggest problem with Jen's series is all the characters keep showing up. So I can't everyone has to have a unique voice because there are times that they sound similar in my head, but they're going to be talking to each other. So we have to modulate that a little bit. But no, for the most part, if you're being true to the words and you're being true to what the author is putting out there, the voices will come. At least that's how I approach it.
Yep, they do. They'll start talking to you. I just from the author point of view, same thing. I'll just be sitting there and then randomly this new voice comes in and I'm like, "Who are you?" And then I'm like, "Okay, you're going to be in the story now? I got it." So, I feel like it's the same way for probably when you're creating the voices when you're working on the narration. Do you have a favorite type of character that you like to perform?
I don't. I really like to flex my acting muscles whenever I can. And I want to play something that you don't expect. I did a two-book series for Raquel Riley in which I played kind of a young, I don't know what the best, it was an age gap romance, and I was the younger part of the age gap, which my voice generally doesn't get cast as. I normally get cast as a monster or a mafia boss just based on how I sound. So being able to play an 18-year-old who is kind of on the not prepubescent side, but younger side and definitely younger presenting, and having that perspective when I just came off a hardened mafia boss who has everything figured out, is in his fees, and the world revolves around him, to then be this shy, innocent, very not confident at all character, and then be a dragon or a fae that's in prison. Whatever it happens to be, I want to do it. I want to try something new. I want to just subvert all your expectations. What does Tyler sound like? He sounds like this. That's not what you're getting. You're going to get something else. I really find a lot of joy, and I really think it's a lot of fun to just play something different every time. But yeah, I don't have a favorite type. They're all my favorite.
Yeah, you get to flex your creative muscles and be challenged in bringing something new to life. So, how do you prepare for emotionally heavy or intense scenes?
So those generally I do have to sit with for a little bit before I record. When I'm going to give a performance that is intended to evoke emotion, I really want to put myself in the mindset of that character. What are they feeling? What is their background? What are their past experiences coming up to this event? To make it as authentic as possible. I want to pull as many real life examples. I haven't experienced most of the things that happen to the characters in the books that I do, but I've experienced things that are similar or can get me close to the same emotion. And I really want to sit with that and feel those emotions before I turn the mic on. So when I do come out with, an anguish scene or an extremely happy emotion or extremely distraught emotion, that you hear it because you can't see me. You can't see my facial expressions like you can on a movie or on a TV screen or on a stage. So I have to give you all of that with my voice, which means it has to be authentic. And so I know the text. I've read that chapter a couple of times. The really emotional things I'll read a couple of times. I want to be sure that I'm not stumbling over words because that's going to pull me out. And then I really just focus on making sure that you as a listener hear and experience the emotion that that character is feeling at that time.
Is it difficult when, let's say, for like Kieran, you have an accent versus talking like you are now with me to deliver those types of scenes, staying in that tone and delivering those emotional moments?
So, no, I find because when I don't go full Daniel Day-Lewis, but I do try to get into that character as much as possible. It is easier in a first person narrative because you're not slipping out of that accent ever.
Mhm.
So you're constant for the entire chapter, that's who's talking, right? So I'm in that headspace the entire chapter. That makes it easier because once that accent is down and is coming out, it just becomes natural speech. So I
Mhm.
could probably walk out of the booth and just keep going in that accent. Get a lot of weird looks if I did, but yeah, so I am focused so solely on the emotion at that point. The voice is gonna come, the again, like, I'm in that headspace of the character, so I'm already in that voice. So I'm not even honestly thinking about it.
Okay. I was wondering about that because I'm like, I try to do little voices and I can't hold it for very long. But
Okay.
I'm thinking if you're like having to remember the voice, having to deliver, an emotional scene, it's probably daunting, but that is cool that you can stay in that character and it's just flawless through. So what is something that people maybe do not realize about audiobook narration that would be surprising to them based on your knowledge and your time working as a narrator?
So I think the biggest thing is we're not reading a book. Everyone everyone who's ever been told, "Wow, you have a great voice. You should do audiobooks." If you don't have an acting background or at least an inclination to act, your audiobook is going to be very, very boring. And I know this because when I started doing this, my very first recording, before I auditioned, before I did anything, I said, I want to learn how to do this. I want to take some classes. But before that, let's just get in front of a mic and let's see what happens. Right. And I took one of
Hmm.
my favorite books and I read the first chapter and I listened back and I put myself to sleep. It was so boring. It was so awful because I read the book.
Hmm.
Narrators don't read, narrators perform. Narrators give you the emotion that you're hearing in your head when you read with your eyeballs, right? But we have to do it physically. So I think that's the thing is a lot of people are like, well, I can read books out loud. And I can like, I read to my kids and I do funny voices and all that, yeah, but that's for a very short amount of time. I do it for 8 hours a day, and I have to keep that energy up. It's a job. It's not just reading a book. It's a job, and it's not an easy job or everyone would do it, right?
Yeah.
That being said, there are a lot of amazing narrators out there. I don't want it to sound like I'm this exclusive, like I learned the secret. No, there are so
Hmm.
many amazing narrators out there. And with the right coaching and training and practice, yeah, you can be that, you know, but you can't just walk into a booth and start reading.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. So, have you had the opportunity to narrate with maybe somebody that you liked or admired as a narrator, being that you've listened to them in the past? Did you have that opportunity?
I haven't yet. Like someone that I've been a fan of, not yet, but by the end of the summer I will have. We're not gonna
Awesome.
say who yet, but we
Ooh, I have to.
definitely it's coming. So I'm very excited about that. But I will say I have done books recently with people that I didn't know very well, knew of, and then when I started getting some files to listen to, actually just emailed and was like, "My God, you're good at this. I am so happy to be working with you." And he probably doesn't mind if I say, Julio Maxwell.
Okay.
We just did a book together that is in pre-release. It's going to be coming out soon. It's called Resilient. He is amazing. in it. I heard his first chapter. I stopped everything and jumped on my laptop and said, Julio, my God, this is amazing. You are so good at this.
That's awesome. That's probably really rewarding. I mean, working with someone else in general probably is because you have that creative process of bouncing back and forth. But when it's somebody that you admire or somebody that maybe shows you or gives you a new idea or a technique that maybe you weren't aware of, that's probably a really cool thing to experience.
That is, I learn something new every book that I do, just from my own trying things. I'm in a room by myself, just bouncing ideas off me. But I've worked with so many talented narrators, and the things that I've learned from, the Molly Bryers and the Lexi Evanses and the Julio Maxwells, and just my goodness, I've worked with so many people, and I feel bad that I'm not going to name them all. Um, but yeah, the narrator community in general is very, very open and welcoming and very sharing.
Yeah.
I've learned so much from people that didn't have to teach me anything. Could have just said, "Yeah, you're doing fine," and gone on their way, but didn't, and took the time to talk to me and say, "Oh, well, that's an interesting choice. I was thinking this." And then the collaboration to say, "Oh, okay," all in the name of making sure that the listeners get the best product that we can give them.
It's really great. I commend narrators because, like you said, you're in the booth like all the time. You have to like, are you an introvert or are you an extrovert?
I'm 100% an introvert.
Okay, so then it's not so bad for you being in there. I am that way too. Like I don't mind my quiet time. Like I get like anxiety to go out into the real world, but it probably is still in some ways kind of lonely. So that interaction with somebody that kind of walks that same life you do, that probably is helpful.
Yeah, no, it 100% is it's just amazing. This community is amazing.
Yeah, that's really great. So I wanted to ask a couple questions about when you're recording. Have you ever gotten attached to a certain character that, like, still to this day you think about?
So, honestly, recently, the Holiday Scars book. So, Deborah's Holiday Scars. I want to bring those characters back so bad. I want to see where they are. I want to be in the books that they're in, reprising those characters, their banter back and forth, explore their relationship, how it's maturing from, the friends that I don't want to give away too much book. It's not that big of a book, but I
Their
just
journey.
their arc, their relationship arc, I think was so sweet.
Hmm.
And I would just love to bring those characters back in another novella, just in any book that they just happen to be in. I just want to be there. I want to be there for them. So, Deborah, if you're listening and you got
I
another
second
story
that.
for those two, let me know.
I second that. Do a like a where are they now kind of story. I hope she does that for I am not ready to let go of the Astoria Royal series, like or the Quinlan Empire. I'm like gonna cry and be very distraught when that thing comes to an end. I'll probably just go back and start over again and listen to them all again because I'm going to be sad. So, on that same vein, during recording, have you ever been hysterically laughing or crying based on what you're bringing to life in a narration?
Yeah, I definitely had scenes that I had to re-record 10, 12, 15 times with the emotion coming through. I love when I get a belly laugh from a scene when a character's being, extra snarky, or you get that, especially in Enemies to Lovers, you'll get a lot of that humor in there that that just has me rolling. And I've definitely ruined a lot of takes doing that. And the same, with a really emotional sad scene or an angsty scene or an anguish scene. I had one book where the very last line was a character reveal. There had been a character that was leading a double life, and the heroine found out, and the last line she called, who she had known as one character, called him by the other name. And I choked up to the point where I couldn't get the line out. I had to walk out. Like, I had to take a 20-minute break and come back just to get the line out, because it was a really, really emotional ending to the book, and really, really sweet, and I couldn't get out of my head, because I was while I was narrating, I was also watching these characters, complete their journey, and it was so sweet. So, yeah, that happens. It definitely happens.
What's the name of that one? That book? Do you
That is Kelpie by
help
Ashley
me?
Chap.
Okay. Okay. Have to grab that one. So, since it is romance, everybody always asks me to ask this question. So, when you're doing those spicier scenes, is it awkward? Is it funny? Or is it just another day at the office?
It's another day at the office. Um, the spice that we all know and love for our romance books, I do read the book first. It's not a
Mhm.
surprise to me what's coming. And again, when I'm in the booth and I'm narrating those scenes, I wanna be sure that you as the listener are hearing the emotions, and we're not doing a walkthrough, right?
Mhm.
Because nothing's gonna pull you out of that scene faster than an unenthusiastic, "Wow,
Mhm.
that was great." Like, that's no one wants to hear that, right? So I am more focused on making sure that the emotions and the words are coming out in a way that is enhancing those scenes and not
Mhm.
pulling you out. So for me, while they are very spicy and very enjoyable to listen to narrate them, that's just me doing my job.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what do you enjoy most about narrating?
Again, I really enjoy being other people. And maybe that's part of being the introvert, is you get to be someone else. You get to be someone that you're not. The other thing that I really do enjoy is meeting fans at the conventions. I've been to a couple conventions. I've gone to a few more this year, and I never thought I would do that. I really didn't think that that was something for me until I started meeting people that had heard my books
Mhm.
and had said, "Wow, this character really resonated with me," or I read the book and it was great, and then I heard the book and I experienced it on a different level. That just means the world to me. It's so nice to hear that, I put a lot of work into this to give the listeners an experience. And again, I'm in the booth all the time. I don't get feedback. It's not being on stage where you have instant feedback. People boo the villain. You did a good job. I don't know. I record this and then it's off in the ether. So to get as an actor, we love feedback, and to get that feedback is really, it's very nice. If you ever see me out in the world, we do appreciate when you come up and say hi.
Yeah. Yeah. So we do see you out in the wild sometimes at book events. We
I
might
am
have the
out in the
opportunity.
wild occasionally.
Awesome. If you could narrate any book, let's say it's not a book that maybe it's one you've read. Do you have one that you'd be like, I would love to narrate this?
I think one of the book series that has had a very lasting impression on me was Stephen King's The Dark Tower series.
Hmm.
There was something about that book when I read it as a kid that just hooked me. And it's a 7-book series. It's not short by any means. And I've read it probably 2, 3, 4 times all the way through. I've listened to the audiobooks, but I have those characters in my head, and I'd love to narrate those books.
There's another plug. Hey, he can do this. Go ahead and call him. I haven't dived too far into his work.
It's fantasy, and I tend to trend towards fantasy and romantasy in my reading for pleasure.
I think that might
Yeah, go for it.
dive back in there and see how they are, because I love fantasy. That's my main genre, and then probably mafia after that.
Listen,
I
I
like
love
them
you
both
listening to
genres.
Mafia. I've done plenty of them, and I'll keep doing
Yeah,
it. So
yeah,
you can do
yeah.
both.
They're a lot of yes. So I thought we could do a little quick "Would you rather" narrator edition.
Okay.
So the first one is, would you rather narrate a romance book with a ton of emotional scenes or a thriller where it's constantly intense?
I would rather do the romance. I like the up and down. I think that
Yeah.
that makes the really intense scenes pop that much more.
Mhm. Now, within that, a lot of the tropes, like you mentioned, enemies to lovers. So would you rather an enemies to lovers or like a forced proximity?
I wanted to say why choose there, but that's not the game. I really enjoy enemies to lovers. I think the play of those characters back and forth, especially at the beginning, when you can really go at it and you can
Yes.
really, really pit those characters against each other and then get that one look where like, well, what was that? And bring it forward. Yeah, I think enemies to lovers is where I would go.
Yeah. I was just talking to another author about this, and there's not many of them. And now I want to write one just because I want to see it more, because I think it would be really fun. Would be a lovers to enemies. I don't see very many of those,
Mm,
right? Like
that
going
sounds that
backwards.
sounds fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
thought,
I'm in.
yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah. I'm adding that to my like items that I have going on my head, because I thought that would be a cool one that's not done very much. Um, so would you rather do one consistent voice for an entire book or 20 wildly different characters?
You know, I have done so many books with so many different characters. I kind of want to just do one just to see what it's like.
Okay. All right. Would you rather narrate a book you love but struggle with the characters, or a book you're not into but the narration side of it is a little easier?
Give me a challenge
Challenge.
every time.
Okay. All right. Well, you mentioned earlier fantasy, so this one might be a hard one. Fantasy or romance?
Give me the romance. I like a happy ending.
I agree. Standalone or a series?
I like a series. I like to be able to bring a character for multiple books, give them a true arc. Yeah, give me a series.
Morning recording sessions or late night sessions?
I push towards late night more because when I wake up in the morning, believe it or not, my voice is even deeper. And that can actually cause some issues day to day recording and matching the voices. So, yeah, I like to start a little later in the day.
Okay. And then would you rather voice the villain or the hero?
Villain every time to
You're
think about
fine.
that.
And then would you rather emotional scenes or action packed scenes?
I really enjoy the emotional scenes. I really, I think I get more out of them, and hopefully the listeners get more out of them too.
Mhm. Okay. And then when you finish a book and you send it off to the next stage, what do you hope that listeners take away from after you finish?
Great question. Again, my entire goal is to do right by the author, that their words are out there in a way that evokes the emotions and the stories that they wanted to convey, and that the listeners get to experience that. Again, like they're not my words, they're not my emotions, those are the authors. I'm there to bring them to a medium that is meant to be consumed that way. For some people prefer audiobooks, some people can only do audiobooks, and we want to be sure that they're getting the same experience that someone who is just reading a book with their eyeballs. So my hope is that I am passing that author's voice to the listener in a way that is impactful and meaningful to them.
Yeah. That's true. And then you as, a reader and a narrator, because you're, a professional in this world, what, in your opinion, makes a great story?
I think good characters will always make a good story. When you are reading or listening, if a character is one dimensional, it's very hard to relate and it's very hard to stay in the story. When a character is very predictable, it's very hard to care about them. So I think the characters are king always. They're the ones that are gonna bring you into the story and keep you into the story.
That's true. If you could go in a portal, since you like fantasy, and go back in time and see you as a younger narrator, what message would you tell yourself knowing what you know now?
Stop doubting yourself. You're doing this for a reason. People are hiring you for a reason. Own it. Make the bold choices. Don't try to be so conservative with everything that you do.
It's very good. Do you have any words of wisdom? I know we talked about, people that want to be a narrator. You were talking about they need to really know the craft and have that acting background. But what would be something that you would tell, an inspiring narrator?
I would say definitely go out, get the coaching, do your research, get the coaching. No matter how long you've been doing this job, there's always more to learn. I did a coaching session late last year that really, really showed me ways to enhance my performance that I just had never thought of until I talked to them. And I was like, wow, this is really, I wish I had done this 5 years ago, and be humble, right? You don't know everything. You can't know everything. It's not possible. So listen to the experts, listen to people that have been doing it for a long time and take their words and take them to heart. It will make you better. Don't think you're the best when you're walking into this. Even if you're good, right? Even if you have an acting background, it's different. It is different. And there are, like I said, this community is full of amazing professionals that give incredible advice. Go out there and find it and listen to it and use it. It will make you better.
Yeah. Great advice. Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Like, I am a huge fan. When you brought up, they read the books, now they're listening to it. That is definitely my journey with listening to you and the stories that I've read as a paperback book. So I am very grateful that you are bringing my favorite characters to life through your work. And I thank you for taking your time out of your day today to talk to me.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Glad. I want people to come on here and enjoy their time and have some fun. And I hope that new readers find you this way and that your fans get to fangirl along with me for a little bit. So that's what I've done. I'm happy about that. So thank you.
Thank you.
And for you out there, be sure to follow him, turn the bell on so you get the notifications about all the stuff that's coming out this summer. I can't wait. And join me next time as we get another look behind the book. Happy reading, everyone.